Hey team, noise discipline is absolutely huge, man. Whether you're hunting, you're scouting, or maybe you're working through a non-permissive environment. Your inability to maintain noise discipline is going to allow the four-legged creatures or the two-legged to detect your presence. But if you are good at it, it's going to enable you freedom of maneuver to work through any contested environment. In this video, we're going to demonstrate and discuss 4 tips that you need to add in your kit bag and 1 critical mistake that you need to avoid at all costs. Coming up. You ever just sat still in the woods for 5, 10, or 15 minutes? What did you see? What did you hear? We know that the woods are alive with activity. We can hear the birds chirping all around us. We know that there's animals in and around where we are. There's bear and deer, turkey, bobcats, and of course, the Sasquatch.
This sounds absolutely insane.
Maybe you heard an elk or a deer. More often than not, we may hear things before we actually see them. There's been a few occasions where I have had some bobcat that I've heard, right? Been a couple occasions where I've seen and heard some bear. Got plenty of elk and deer moving through our area. But we know that they're all out there. We just don't often see them. And they all know that every other critter is out here as well. And most of the time, that cadence, that natural sound that they hear on a day-to-day basis doesn't alarm them, right? It doesn't startle them, but there is one noise that we can make that will. Yet what we do hear often has a pattern to it, right? Again, those chipmunks and those squirrels, they scurry and then they stop. And then they scurry again and then they stop. The deer has a pattern to it. Maybe it's the elk that's out there. There's a cadence to the movement, if you will. But there is one sound that will interrupt everything around us. And that's going to be the one critical mistake at the end that we'll talk about. Of course, man, your task and purpose is going to dictate a lot of what we're talking about, right? How much time do you have on your hands to move from point A to point B, right? How contested or permissive is the environment? Is it daytime? Is it nighttime? There's a lot of environmental and weather considerations that we need to consider as we're moving through a woodland environment. More often than not, these are questions that only you can answer based off of your situation, right? But there are 4 steps and 4 things that we need to add into our kit bag, 4 tips, if you will. And the first one is we need to be able to plan a route. You need to consider distance and direction. You need to consider the wind and the movement and the terrain features that you have that are in your area. Of course, we want to try to use terrain features to help mask some of our sound. Right? Could be things like a moving body of water. But always be cautious and know that if it's masking your sound, it's masking sounds of others as well. Of course, being near a body of water is going to put you closer to prey as well, because that is one of the things that we all need in order to survive. Hey team, and don't forget that there's one dude out there with 1 thumb who wants you to like this video. Right, the second tip I have for you is that, man, you have to be patient. You can't be in a hurry to get from A to B. You know, moving at a natural gait, it may take you a minute or so to move 100 meters. Again, in a completely non-permissive or a completely permissive environment, if you will. But if you're patrolling, if you're scouting, if you're doing reconnaissance work, that same 100 meters could take you 5 minutes. At nighttime or in a contested environment, that same 100 meters could take you 10 minutes or more. But if you're moving too quickly, man, you're going to miss things. You need to stop, you need to look, you need to listen, and you need to smell with each and every step that you take. We're moving slowly and we're thinking about each and every single step. Again, go back to the terrain that you have, right? It may take longer to work through a marshy area to get to where you're trying to go. But that intentional act and moving a little bit slower in a different direction to come back to where you're trying to go can be all the thing that you need to happen in order to mask and conceal your movement. And of course, team man, as we're moving through, leave some comments down below, because it's down there in that comment section where all the magic happens. So the third tip I have for you is super easy, man, and this is something that we need to practice each and every time that we're out. And we need to pick up our feet. The novice who's working out here in the woods will often drag their feet. They'll often stomp their feet, and they're not being aware of what they are doing with the very two things that are hitting the ground as we're walking. So pick up your feet. On that note of picking up our feet, man, we need to watch where we're going. We have to do two things when we're watching where we're going, right? The first one is we need to look through the wall of green. Where are we going, right? Does that make sense? We need to understand what's out in front of us that we are approaching. But at the same time, we need to be able to look down near us. If we don't do these two things, we're going to become very myopic in our vision, right? We're not going to be able to see through the wall of green, but we're also not going to be able to see where we're stepping. And going back to where we're stepping, sometimes you may need to use a heel and then roll technique. In other situations, maybe it's a log or a branch that's sitting there. You may need to step down with your toe first and then plant your heel. Again, each and every single step is going to require something a little bit different. Thinking about our routes, right? As we're stepping, we need to be cautious and understand that it may take a little bit longer to work through and get to a pine forest, if you will, like I did during the survival games, right? I was working through really slow at night, but I was able to increase my speed even at night as soon as I hit a pine forest, because that forest enabled me to step quickly and work through this area a lot faster, as opposed to maybe working through a lot of trees and branches that may be on the ground that's going to cause a lot more noise if I move quickly. So watch your step, be patient, and understand your direction of travel. So 4 tips I have for you today. The number one critical mistake that we need to avoid at all costs. Odds are you probably know what it is right now. And it's something that only larger creatures like us, things that have heavy weight as they're moving out through the woods, is going to make. And that's the breaking of the branches that are on the ground underneath our feet as we're working out through this woodland environment. That one noise will make everything stop dead in its tracks and do one of two things. Sit there and try to observe what's happening, or dart away. But either way, the concentration and the attention is on you, because everything in the forest is aware now of your presence. So team, I hope you enjoyed the content of this one. The 4 tips and the 1 critical mistake to avoid at all costs when working out in a permissive or non-permissive environment. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. That way we can continue to keep this conversation rolling. As always, man, I appreciate each and every single one of y'all. And until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.